Hi.
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 Hi, we're Christina and Bill from Sovereignty Lab, and it's
Ye-
about time for an update. We haven't done one in
yes,
a while.
yes, we are. Yo, what?
We haven't done one in a
No, it's
while.
been a minute. We've been busy, and we got a lot of stuff to share with you today.
We do.
We made a list, and I think the first thing, we got married. There you go. So what was that? May
It was.
8th? May 8th, we got married. And so yeah, it's official. And there was a lot leading up to that. It turned out really, really nice.
It did.
So that was cool.
It was really beyond any expectations or ways that I could have even thought like it might happen. It was really nice.
Yeah, if we would have planned it, it wouldn't have gone that well. So yeah, our friends showed up, and it was really nice. Very cool.
Yeah.
So we got that. What else? Oh, you stopped doing the farmers market.
Yeah.
That was kind of like part of the married thing. We had so much going on that didn't have the bandwidth to go to the farmers market each week, Weaverville Farmers Market.
Mm-hmm.
So we put a pause on that, and ironically, as a result, you got really busy with clients.
Yes.
Homeopathy clients.
Yeah, it's been amazing. My practice is really taking off right now, and had some really good successes, and I will share that in another video, though, another time. But definitely want to put a plug in for the Wednesday Weaverville Tailgate Market.
Wednesday. Oh yeah, like we still fully support them. It's just that we just didn't have the bandwidth to get ready and all that kind of stuff for that. But we still see clients by appointment here at Sovereignty Lab.
Right here in Weaverville.
Right here in Weaverville. Let's see. I also paused on Systema for a minute. There was just so much going on, keeping up with the homestead and being dad and her being mom and all the dynamics in and around that, taking care of the house, working with clients both online and in person. We didn't have the bandwidth to do Systema as well, but that has picked up again a few weeks ago, and we are now back to Saturdays from 11 to 2 teaching Systema here at Sovereignty Lab. I also booked a seminar that I'm going to be co-teaching with a good friend of mine, Mark Jacobson, down in Jacksonville, Florida, June 29th and 30th.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a Saturday, Sunday down in Jacksonville, Florida. Do we have stuff up on the internet?
I do. I made a Facebook event. I think I forgot to put it as an event on Sovereignty Lab yet, but by the time we post this, it'll be up. Yeah, and we will be.
Would we need to tell them if it's not up by the time we put the video up? Then it would be up.
Yeah, it's going to be up.
It's going to be up. So we really didn't even need to mention that. So ignore that. Okay. We did the Systema thing. Okay. What else we've been doing?
Bill heard about service berries years ago. I just learned about them last year. And then this year, I was sitting in the car. We were downtown. And I'm waiting for Bill to run his errand. And I look up and I see somebody picking these berries out of the tree. And I'm like, oh. And I run out of the car and I'm like, are those service berries? And she's like, yeah.
Yeah, I had never seen service berries. I looked them up on the internet, but I'd never seen them in person, so I didn't have an idea of what I'd be looking for, really.
Yeah.
And they are all over Asheville.
And Weaverville. Like, it's ridiculous. Once you know what you're looking for, they're everywhere.
And they look like a tree. They kind of look like a crabapple tree in a way, but they have
like a tall, shrubby, short tree.
Yeah, thing. And the berries are kind of like blueberries, about the same size as blueberries, yet they have more of a purple color.
Yeah, they're not as dark as...
They start red, and then they go to purple, and yeah.
Yeah, they've got the texture of a blueberry, but they've got little seeds, little tiny seeds in them, and then they're sweeter. They've got almost like a florally flavor in them. They're really good.
Yeah. So we picked a bunch last week, and you canned some
Yeah,
over
I
the weekend.
made compote and then canned it. So that was really fun.
Yeah, and that's we're getting more into the rhythm now. We're 2 years, 3 years into things, and now we've kind of got the learning curve out of the way on some of these things: chickens, rabbits, bees, gardening stuff, and revisiting them
Yes.
with the mistake, understanding, learning from the mistakes that we made in years to past. So it's easier.
It is. And I want to say that this was my first solo canning expedition. And I had to call Bill because he was out of town at a wedding. And I'm like, okay, just hold my hand for a second, walk me through the steps again. And then, but I did it. But like that would have been 3 years ago, like to do all the stuff that we're doing now, it seems overwhelming. And the baby steps and like the little mistakes that we've made along the way, like don't beat yourself up if you aren't doing everything you want to do.
They weren't. You were.
Don't listen to him.
But yeah, so if you make a mistake, you learn from it. You figure out what you did wrong, and I think that's something that I made in the past. What I would do is
You learn from him?
Oh, I didn't make mistakes to begin with. Anyhow, in theory,
Okay.
if I made a mistake, I would go back and learn from them, and then I would do better. Kind of like we're dialing in where things grow around the yard.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we had tomatoes in multiple different places, for example, and learned that they definitely liked certain beds over others. Same thing with basil. And then, of course, there was like a ridiculous amount of volunteer tomatoes.
Well, there's
they
that.
kind of just made up their own rules.
Some things like shade more, some things like more water, and some things like more sun. And we're dialing in kind of where on the land things prefer growing. And then one of the things we've been working in is dialing in improving the soil. So that's been big, using the rabbits and the chicken manure, as well as we got a load of horse manure this year. Not a horse.
Not metaphorically speaking.
Big load of horse.
We got a big pile of shit sitting there.
Pile of shit. Yes. So we've been continuing building raised beds and looking at how we can improve the soil in the existing beds and building new beds.
Yeah.
To house more perennials, more things that Christina uses in tinctures and salves and things like that, so we can produce more things here on the land.
Yes, and you may have seen one of our previous videos from a year or two ago when we got a huge load of, it was 2 years ago that we got the huge load of bottom of a pond soil. We thought, oh yeah, it's going to be great. It's been in a pond. It's been fertilized by the fish. It's like,
and all the rotten stuff at the bottom of the pond.
And it's really just, it was suitable for making bricks.
It's more like concrete.
That was it. And
so
it was not only non-friable. So friable means like it's fluffy and light and the roots can easily get into it, but it was completely devoid of nutrition at all.
Yeah, so it's been a heavy lift in those beds to get plant material and stuff growing in those beds. Ironically, though, some things grow really well in that soil, which, until you screw it up, then you figure out what that is. So we've been improving the soil. As a matter of fact, I ran a 55-gallon drum of compost tea. I got that going yesterday, so we got that bubbling using the rainwater from the roof, and started putting that on the beds today to see how that's going to help things grow. Oh, we got everything. I forgot about the greenhouse. Had all the stuff in the greenhouse.
Oh yeah. Well, wait a minute. The other project that Bill endeavored into probably 2 years ago was mealworms.
Oh yeah.
And they just kind of sat there for a while. We fed them every week routinely, but we didn't do anything. Finally, we got the screens that you need because you sort mealworms by going through different little holes. So, like the actual worms themselves.
Well, they got poop too.
Well, I was getting there. We ended up with almost a 5 gallon bucket of
No, there
frass.
was two.
Two 5 gallon buckets of frass. And the
Yeah.
frass is their poop, which is a very valuable fertilizer. And so we've been putting that on the garden this year too. So we've just got a lot of other things going now that have been works in progress.
Yeah, seeing how things weave together, it's been interesting because a lot of what we get is it's like we started on a lot of different projects, but wasn't really sure how it all was going to weave together. It's a good thing that we needed to do this, or that was good,
Yeah,
easy to start up with, but we didn't know how that was going to all go together. And now things are the dots are starting to connect. Building the garden beds out of rabbit and chicken manure, and then working with cover crops. We started with the clover last year. We planted the garlic last fall.
Garlic's doing great.
A lot of things that the whole concept of permaculture, the whole concept of homesteading isn't like you jump into it and on day one things are moving. It's like this gradual, like a spiral. And every time you revisit the same conversation, you have the experiences of what you learned, and then you continue moving forward with it.
And speaking of those garlic bulbs that you planted last fall, we've already had our first
the scapes
harvest of scapes and made garlic scape pesto, which was so good.
That was really good. Yeah.
So
the garden, we have a lot of things. Some things we thought were gonna make it that didn't, like that pomegranate tree. That isn't doing so good, and that's a location thing, I believe. It's too close to the chickens.
Yeah, so it's getting hot soil.
Yeah, but the other things like the grapevines, completely dead. We planted them, bought them last summer, thought they were completely dead, and now they're growing. Like, who'd have thunk?
The figs.
Oh yeah, figs completely died to the ground, like snapping the twigs at the top, and now they're growing, both of them.
This is very exciting.
Yeah, that's exciting. Some of the other things, the gumi, the goji berries, the blueberries, all of those got moved around, and they're taking root and growing.
The pear trees, plum trees, or the apple trees, whatever. Yeah, they're all doing great. Yeah, it's good.
So let's see, what else do we have? We have lots and lots of rabbits. If you want rabbits, reach out to us. Like, we're a little behind on separating some of the rabbits, and
which also is a way of saying we were behind on processing the grow outs.
Yeah,
also that we even had to get to the point of separating them.
So anyhow, we have a ton of rabbits. How many?
We had a few surprise litters, including one yesterday.
How many babies do we have now? It's over 20.
It's close to 30 because this last one just had 8, which was, 30. We averaged 6 in a litter, and she had 8. But we lost about 8. So, we would have had 35, 36.
A lot.
Yeah.
A lot of babies.
So, yeah, it's lots of rabbits.
That's been busy. So lots and lots of rabbits. Then we had mushroom logs.
Yes.
Lots and lots of mushroom logs. I got a hold of a poplar tree and an oak tree
that had just freshly been cut down,
and got a lot of mushroom spawn to inoculate the logs with. And there's a good 9 pallets of mushroom logs right now that are stacked
So if anybody wants mushroom logs, hit us
Mushroom
up.
logs. And we've been getting mushrooms because I've been doing the mushroom logs since 2000. So those are producing.
2020.
What did I say?
2000.
Oh, yeah. Different year. Different decade. Yeah, 2020. We had, when I started doing mushroom logs. So I learned from what I did incorrectly in 2020, what I may have done incorrectly in 2020, and ideally they're gonna be better this now. So that's good.
Well, here's one tip that we learned, like oyster, like
Plant your
blocks.
corn early.
Yeah, there's that. And don't eat yellow snow.
Yeah.
But the mushroom blocks, like you'll get it like in a plastic bag and you cut holes in it and you spray it. So certain ones like oysters will also grow on wood chips. So you get the bag, you let it fruit 3 or 4 times, and then when it slows down, you open it up and break it up and put it in wood chips.
Put in wood chips.
Like layer it like wood chips, mushrooms, wood chips. And it'll start producing mushrooms again.
Yeah, so we're getting more mushrooms out of the wood chip piles that we have around because I was testing to see the different wood chip piles and putting the oysters for these blocks. We call them blocks. Blocks that were spent, like Christina was saying, and we started getting like within a week. It was the craziest.
The first fruiting happened. It just needed more fuel. You know, they stopped producing in that bag or that block because they've run out of food.
Or I think they get
or the
dry.
growing medium. Yeah,
they get dry. So anyhow, that was something we learned.
Yeah.
So we had lots of mushrooms. So Christina's been cooking lots of mushrooms.
Yes, definitely been enjoying those shiitakes lately.
Shiitakes, oysters, and wine caps.
And lion's mane.
Lion's mane?
Mm-hmm. They're right in the refrigerator. I'll be cooking them later.
Yeah, see, I learned something new with you today. Let's see. The garden. What else in the garden?
The greenhouse. You were going to talk about the greenhouse.
Well, yeah. So we got the greenhouse finished in February.
I think so.
Somewhere around in February. Started planting seeds there. And then there was the process of getting in the habit of working with the greenhouse because it'll get real hot during the day and it'll get cold at night, especially in February, and how we can get things growing in there. And that's what we filled up the majority of our beds with, the stuff that was growing out of the greenhouse.
And that was a huge improvement for us too over previous years because we've used shelves or racks with grow lights, but we had it down here in the lab, and the lab is actually like a big garage. And so
it is a big garage. I didn't even like it. It was.
It's a big garage. And so it doesn't get that warm in here. And it definitely, we didn't use like heat mats or anything for the seeds. So our seed starts in the past were just,
they were too weak.
Yeah. So this was a really big improvement. And yeah, we have viable plants starts this year. Lots of tomatoes. Lots of squash.
Yes.
The squash is going to be like gangbusters this year. I'm going to have to figure out. You know, we stored squash. We still have a couple of butternut squash from last year.
Yep.
Potatoes lasted until a couple months ago.
Then you started sprouting.
Yeah, and we had them in sawdust, like in a tub with sawdust, and that lasted from, I don't even remember when we harvested them. Maybe September?
No, October, I'm going to say we harvested the potatoes last year,
and
which we got quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
However, you realize we planted them later in the year. It was like May or something when we planted the potatoes, maybe even June.
Yeah, I think it was June.
We planted the potatoes.
It was really late.
And they needed a longer growing season. You could start the end of March.
So to get the harvest that we got, which was a pretty good amount, and to eat, you know, for as long as we did, we were happy. But we definitely need to figure out a better storage.
Well, that's where the canning comes in. There's the canning the potatoes.
I just learned about dry canning.
Yeah. So it's the learning process.
I just learned how to can hard-boiled eggs too. So
Yeah.
that'll be
We
a new
talked
project.
about canning mushrooms. You saw the lady yesterday. She had the carrots and the onions and the celery in a jar to see how it went, and it worked.
Yeah.
She said it did good.
So all kinds of fun stuff to learn.
Yeah. Let's see. We had a rat issue.
Oh God.
That was.
You know, we were kind of ignoring it until they ate a litter of kits.
Of rabbits.
Kit rabbits, yeah.
Yeah. So,
and then it was like, you know.
Then it was like we were trying to figure out how to keep them out of the cage, and they could squeeze through the cage, and there's different size rats, and anyhow, so it's like we had to start confronting that situation. And one of the things was we had the bucket. I don't know if you've seen, it's like a 5-gallon bucket, and there's a lid on it. It's got the little tilt things, and you put food.
It's got little ramps that go up to the
little ramps,
tilt things, and
little rat ramp. They can run up, and you fall in the bucket, and then you dispose of them from there. And then there was the Ratnator, which is this really cool cage maze kind of system that you have for bait and for closing it, and a thing where they can go in there.
You go through a process of training them to go in and get comfortable, and then on the third day you keep it so they can't get back out. And
you leave it open basically for 2 days, and on the third day you set everything where they can go in like they've been doing the past 2 days, but then they're stuck. And then from there you take the whole container. It's like a rectangle, a cage set up. Anyhow, between the buckets, the Ratnator, we were doing the muffin mix with the baking soda.
I'd forgotten about that.
Apparently rats can't fart. Like what you wanted to know. But rats can't fart. And if you feed them like a muffin mix or a cake mix mixed with baking soda, what ends up happening, it creates bubbles, and they don't do well with that. But
it didn't seem to deter them very much.
No, it seemed like it was just
they ate the
them.
Shit out of it, but they did not. They kept coming.
So we tried that. The traps weren't even it because there were so many of them. And so one evening I sat on the back porch and I shot 7 of them. And then we got the Ratnator, and we caught a bunch more, and we catching them in buckets. So that's all been like this ongoing rhythm that we got into of setting these traps and making sure they were rotated between the different rabbit areas in the different chicken coops. So we're up over 40 or 50.
Insane.
Yeah, we caught 15 last night.
Yeah.
So anyways, so there was a rat issue. What?
So I'm not sure if we mentioned it before, but we got a new sign.
Did we?
Yeah.
I know we got a new sign. I didn't know if we.
I don't know if we mentioned it in the last video, but I think it's worth mentioning again.
We got a sign.
We have a new sign. I'll put a picture in there.
Sign before.
I'm going to say it again.
Okay.
It says Sovereignty Lab and the Knee Pain Guru.
Knee Pain Guru.
And it looks really nice.
Yeah, it's up on Old Marcel Highway.
So stop in sometime. Call us. Make an appointment.
Call first.
Yeah.
And one of the things were the bees.
Oh, yeah.
So last year, it was just a year ago this month that I got my first hive. And then...
It's his hive.
It is. What's wrong?
We're married.
It's my hive.
50% mine.
You could have half the bees. Anyhow. So I ended up with 2 hives last year. And we ended up with honey last year, which we weren't supposed to get honey at all. Like it was supposed to be...
First year hives, you don't get honey.
And ended up with 6 gallons of honey last year. So we've been making jun with that, which is like kombucha made with honey instead of sugar.
And green tea instead of black.
No, you can make it with black tea. It doesn't matter the type of tea.
Okay.
It's just the the sugar source, carbohydrate source.
Who knew?
Yeah. So I've been making, Christina's been making the oxymels for the mixing it half with vinegar, half with honey, and then soaking herbs in there for specific ailments, whatever it is. She could talk about that more. And so we had honey last year. I go into the winter, there's issues with varroa mites. You want to make sure you treat them for the varroa mites, which can reduce the strength of the hive. It can kill the hive. There's a whole bunch of diseases they could get if you don't treat the varroa mites. So I didn't even know if I was going to make it through the winter with the hives. They made it through the winter. Into the spring, had a real strong, one of the hives was really strong, ended up splitting that hive. So I went from 2 hives to 3 hives. And then through a series of connections in person, personal connections and Facebook, I ended up catching 3 swarms. So would go to a person's house where they had a bunch of bees in a tree, and I'd go there with the bee box and shake the bees into the box and then bring the hive back. And I got 3 of those. So now I'm at 6 hives, and in another steep learning curve this year around bees. So that's been pretty cool.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I've gotten involved a little bit more, and it's been fun to, see in the hives and see how everything's grown. And
you've gone to a couple of the bee meetings, so you kind of are more familiar with that. You helped me catch the 1 swarm.
In the pouring rain.
Yeah, which was a little bit of the blind leading the blind, because it's like I'm still in my first year, and now she's coming with me to help catch these bees, and a little bit of making it up as I go. So
we watched.
Well, Dave
we called.
Dave and Dale have been.
They coached us through.
Coached me through some of it. Jerry's coached me through. The Madison Bee Club guys have been super helpful.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna go shadow the one beekeeper next week.
Nice.
Which is gonna be cool. So it's the whole concept with bees, simple understanding of it. It's like propagating a really fast growing plant. And when do you dig it out and repot it and put it in 2 pots or cut it into 4 pots? And it's the same thing with beehives, and looking at what's going on in the frames of the hive and understanding what the bees are making, and they're making it for a reason, for queens or worker bees, which are the female worker bees, or the male drones. And so it's all kind of fascinating, and I'm still wondering what I'm looking at a lot of times, but learning. So
well, yeah, I think that's about it. That's all we had on our list.
You're going to make some follow-up videos on some of the clients that you've been working with.
Yeah, there's been some really exciting cases. And
you want to give like a real quick the topics that you might be covering?
Yeah, one of them is on heart disease and massive improvement that happened. Another is from an infant that was having the baby that's called opisthotonus.
Ooh.
They're arching their head and neck back, like throwing back really hard, to the point where mom had to hold on really tight, or the baby would fall out of her arms.
And the emotional stuff, like the people that aren't making the connection with emotional stuff, and how you can help with that.
Yeah, that's been a pattern that I keep seeing, is that I guess the work that we do with homeopathy and the flower essences kind of falls into a blind spot when people are looking for emotional support.
Yeah.
And the emotions run the gamut. Like it can be grief, anxiety, depression, whatever.
Yeah.
Stress. Yeah. So yeah, that's what I'll be talking about in the follow-up video.
So that's a teaser for the next one that she's going to do. When you do it by?
The end of next week.
End of next week. Okay. Thanks, everybody. This is Bill and Christina. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. What else?
Yeah, visit sovereigntylab.com.
Visit sovereigntylab.com. Check us out. If you got questions, post them below.
Yeah.
Great.
That's good. You guys take care. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Have a good rest of the day. Take care. Bye-bye.